Hey, my name is Casey Arriaga. I am a clinician here at Windmill Wellness Ranch, which is a residential treatment program and intensive outpatient program for addiction and other mental health issues. So one of the big questions a lot of people have is, what can I do for my loved one while they're in treatment, and what can I do after they leave? So for a lot of family members, it's such a journey just getting somebody into treatment. There's a lot of relief for that first 24, 48 hours, and then people are suddenly like, wait, what do I do now? First, we can get a little sleep, take care of yourself, all of that stuff, and then the thoughts start turning to, what can I do for them while they're there? And what do I do afterwards? It's a delicate time. That first 2 months after treatment is really a hazardous time for people. It's the time of greatest relapse coming out of treatment. So family members necessarily and automatically start thinking, what do I do? What are the right moves? What are the wrong moves? So first, I'm going to start out with some good news and some bad news. And the good news and the bad news at the same time is actually there's not a lot you can do that is going to guarantee that they're going to get sober. That's the bad news. The good news is there's nothing you can do to screw it up. If they decide to get sober, if they're willing to put in the work, if they're willing to take the suggestions that were given in treatment, then the reality is they are going to keep rolling no matter what you do, positive or negative. However, there are certain things that you can do to support yourself and them that can be a little bit helpful. So first and foremost, we do highly recommend that if your loved one's in treatment, get involved. Most treatment centers, including Windmill, have family programs. Some are very robust, some not as much. There's also books you can see, videos you can watch, things like that that can all be helpful. We'll get into some of that as we go along here. But the number one overarching thing that you can do for your loved one is actually to work on your recovery. And this is something that often does not cross people's minds, but it's a really important thing that we recommend and that a lot of people recommend is loved ones getting into their own recovery. So a lot of family members wonder, what do we even mean by family members finding their own recovery, and why should they? So everybody gets affected by addiction. So research actually shows that someone with an addiction actually affects people out to 2 degrees of separation, which means they'll affect the people around them who will then affect the people around them. So a lot of people are impacted by addiction and don't even realize it. Family members usually have a really good idea that they've been affected. So we look at the idea that those people need to recover from how they've been affected. To compound this, addiction often runs in families, and especially if we recognize that it doesn't always show with alcohol or other drugs. It could be gambling, food, sex, shopping, all kinds of ways that addiction can show up within families. Some people would say codependency. A lot of people are affected by addiction and don't realize it. So as a result, this kind of thing can pass down through generations, and some people have been affected by addiction without realizing that it actually really originally happened 2 generations back and is now just showing up in the newer generation. So sometimes we have to recover from those older family patterns as well. Luckily, there's a lot of resources that are available, recovery fellowships, just like somebody with an addiction, say to alcohol, might go to Alcoholics Anonymous. There's a parallel group running side by side called Al-Anon. If somebody has a problem with narcotics, they might go to Narcotics Anonymous. Well, there's a parallel group called Nar-Anon. If someone goes to Smart Recovery, their loved one might go to Smart Recovery Family and Friends. So those recovery fellowships are available for family members. They're all over the place, they're free, they're relatively easy to find, and now they're on Zoom, they're on phone meetings as well as in person, so lots of resources. There's also a lot of resources available through things like books, videos, that kind of thing, and there's also professional help available. I'm always going to say, check and see if the counselor that you're going to see is familiar with and experienced in working with family members around addiction. If they are, great fit. If not, thank them for the time and find somebody who is. Just like if you had a problem with your heart, you'd see a heart doctor. If you have a problem with addiction, you want to see somebody who specializes in addiction. So here at Windmill, we are very passionate about helping family members, and I'm proud to say that I lead our family workshop each weekend. We co-sponsor a podcast called Addiction in the Family that I co-host with my wife, talking about family issues, interviewing people, getting resources to family members. I also wrote a book called Realistic Hope, the Family Survival Guide for Facing Alcoholism and Other Addictions, to get as much information as we can in family members' hands because we know how important that can be. So next, people look and say, what do I do after treatment? What are the right moves? What are the wrong moves? I'm going to say the number one mistake that I see family members make when their loved one leaves treatment is they stop working on their own recovery. Now, a lot of family members would say, I recognize if my loved one leaves treatment and they stop working on their recovery, they don't go to meetings, they don't meet up with people, they don't talk with other people in recovery, they stop reading about it. I'd be very worried if my loved one with an addiction did that. Well, in the same way as a family member, You don't want to slow your momentum either. In fact, when your loved one gets out of treatment, that is the time to double down on your recovery efforts. So think of everything you hope your loved one's going to do and do those same things for your recovery instead of trying to get them to do it for theirs. So one of the big mistakes that family members also make is trying to pressure their loved one into it, to monitor them, to be smelling their breath and checking their eyes and looking to see, are you really going to meetings and are you doing all those things and kind of staying on top of somebody? Not your job. Their job is their recovery. Your job is yours. So if you wish they were going to more meetings, you should go to more meetings. If you wish they were reading books, you should read books. If you wish they were talking to other people in recovery, you be talking to other people in family recovery. If you do that, that will be of maximum benefit to your loved one. But another thing we can look at is more effective communication and also being able to set healthy, realistic, and effective boundaries. So we want to talk about that. People talk about it. How is it that I can set boundaries? What can I do? So setting an effective boundary is not just telling someone what they can and can't do, because many of us have tried that and we realize it doesn't actually work, but instead we can tell them what we're going to do. So instead of saying, you can't use drugs in my house, we could say, if you use drugs in my house, I'm going to ask you to leave. Notice that difference. Now they get to make a choice. You're not telling them what to do, but you're giving them fair warning of the consequences if they take that action. Now, a rookie mistake around that is people try and set the threshold. A rookie mistake around that is people try and set the threshold so high that it'll scare someone into compliance, but that's not what it's about. It's actually about just telling them your truth. So if you're not going to kick them out, don't say you're going to kick them out. But if you do realize that if they start using drugs in the house, you're going to back away from them, you'll become more distant, you'll be less generous, more loving, all those kinds of things, then be able to speak to that. You could say, if you start using alcohol again, I'm probably not going to kick you out. I don't think I can do that, but I am going to push away from you. We're going to be more distant. I'm probably going to stop sharing with you in terms of time, love, resources, whatever it is that your truth is. That's how we set an effective boundary. And then the most important thing is to follow through. Whatever it is you said you're going to do, try and follow through with it. You can't make other people in the household set and keep your boundaries, but you can set and keep your own boundaries. If you have trouble doing that, if you have trouble figuring out where they should be or how you can keep them, I'm going to say a simple guideline. When you set a boundary, set it according to your values and your safety, including the safety of your house. So things that are important to you and keeping your house safe and keeping yourself safe, those are great guidelines for setting boundaries. And think about, what do I need to do that? If you set the boundary and you have trouble following through, that's where you lean on your support. So talking to a counselor to find out what fears get in the way, talking to other people in recovery fellowships to gain courage and support and see what's worked for other people. Those all can be very highly effective things that you can do after your loved one leaves treatment. So we've touched on this somewhat already, but I just want to reinforce, Windmill is very committed to helping family members. Our admission team works with family members often before their loved one even comes to treatment. And even if your loved one never made it to treatment, we're still here to offer resources like the podcast that we mentioned, like the book. These are things that you can get. Whether your loved one ever sees the light of day here at Windmill, you can start working on your recovery, even if they are not yet working on theirs. No guarantee that that will get them sober, but I guarantee your life will get better. So we offer all of these resources, information for families on our website. And if your loved one does come to Windmill, they will encourage you to get involved, get to that family workshop. It happens every single weekend. Come to visitation, but an hour before visitation, we offer that Smart Recovery Family and Friends meeting. So there's a recovery fellowship meeting. And we also have a Facebook group that's private for family members. So you can connect with other people whose loved ones are going through treatment. And again, you connect with family members of people who have been through treatment. So if you have a question about, they've been out a month, I'm really worried, what do I do? You have those resources to reach out to other people and get support. You are not on your own when you come here. You're not on your own when your loved one comes here. So no matter what the circumstances, whether your loved one ever came to Windmill, whether they're here now, or whether they've left a year, 2 years, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we are still here for them and we're here for you.